still escapes me why any health authority would want to do it, but they are. They sometimes make things up, such as that masks are protective, and sometimes they'll cite research, but increasingly the research is proving to be unreliable. For example, a study that has been cited several times to justify increasing the distance. People have said it's not 6 feet isn't enough, you need to be further away. And the wearing of masks claimed that COVID-19 could be spread by almost 15 feet, over twice what health officials had previously stated. It was published in early March, just when the hysteria began. It's hard to imagine why this study got so much attention. It looked at the spread of the virus on a bus from a one infected passenger, and here's what it said. The COVID-19 outbreak was transmitted by a public transport, resulting in 11 confirmed cases, including 1 asymptomatic case and 2 third-generation cases. The farthest transmission distance of COVID-19 in the airtight, air-conditioned bus reached 4.5 meters. This contagious virus could float in the air for 30 minutes at least and cause infection. COVID-19 has strong transmissibility and can be transmitted by aerosol in a closed environment. Well, it got a whole lot of media attention and served to increase panic even more. Stay inside. The virus stays in the air for 30 minutes. It travels fast. Don't stand next to each other. But here's the thing. The journal, Practical Preventive Medicine, retracted the study a couple days ago. While not stating why, the usual reasons for retraction of an article are things like scientific misconduct or serious errors. Following retraction, the findings of the study are then considered invalid. Well, I haven't seen any coverage of this. You probably haven't either yet. In fact, there's no movement to respond to any of the good news that we're getting about low death rate, this has been retracted, etc. It's almost like the more good news there is, the more they double down on locking everybody down more and coming up with more restrictions. It's almost inexplicable how people can do this to other humans. Now I want to talk about the issue with masks. Government workers and health authorities are recommending that people wear masks when leaving their homes and in public places. In some states, it's mandated. You can't come out of your house unless you've got a mask on. Ohio Governor DeWine issued a mandate on Monday of this week, April 27th, that as stores and businesses reopen, all employees and all customers have to wear masks, and the policy would be no mask, no service, no exceptions. And he changed his mind the next day and said instead it was just like a suggestion. Well, public pressure and blowback was one of the reasons. So I was one of the ones who pushed against this suggestion. I filed a complaint with U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider of the Eastern District Court in Michigan, who has been appointed by the U.S. Attorney General to handle complaints about onerous lockdown restrictions. And also there's an assistant attorney for civil rights, Eric Dreisband, who was appointed to handle civil rights violations. And I contacted my state senator as well. I'm sure I'm not the only person who complained, and the governor did say that the mandate would be rolled back. He heard loud and clear what Ohioans had to say, and I guess my question is, if all these things are so science-based, why does it just take political pressure to change them? But none of this makes any sense. And by the way, why I objected, and then I want to get into the science behind this, is that in an office like this where you're wearing a mask, every time you talk on the phone, you take the mask off so that you can be understood. You get a drink of water and you're going to take the mask, you have to pull it down. If you're going to eat something, you have to take it off. Well, and then you're handling pencils and pens and papers and cell phones and all this sort of thing. Well, by noon every day, what you've really done is created a bacterial cesspool, and it's dangerous. So I basically didn't want my people being exposed to that. And I don't want to be exposed to it either. So that was my objection to it. But once this was all finished, I thought, I want to find out if there is actually any basis for my concern about it. And I thought if I could even find a study, that would be great. But I was amazed at how much research there is about this mask issue, so I'm going to share it with you. So first of all, without getting into a lot of numbers that don't translate well, just remember, viruses are tiny, tiny, tiny little things. And as it turns out they can penetrate the surgical mask barrier. According to the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, in community settings, quote, face masks are not designed or certified to protect the wearer from exposure to respiratory hazards. Another study showed that surgical masks don't provide protection for aerosols, and they gave a range, but the COVID-19 is in that range. It's not protective for that. In household settings, I found 2 studies showing that in a household, surgical masks do not prevent transmission of the flu. Surgical masks, all right? Now, due to shortages, a lot of health directors, including ours, have been instructing people to make their own masks out of cloth. According to a hospital study in which hospital wards were randomized to medical masks, cloth masks, or a control group, which included a high proportion of people who wore some type of mask, the rate of infection was highest in the cloth mask group as compared to the group wearing any other type of mask. Transmission of viral particles through cloth masks was almost 97%. And the reasons cited included moisture retention, reuse of the masks, and poor filtration, all of which can actually increase rather than decrease the risk of infection. The researchers concluded that the results, quote, could be interpreted as harm caused by cloth masks. You read that, you heard that right. Harm caused by cloth masks. A recent study done this year in South Korea looked at the efficacy of both surgical and cotton masks for blocking transmission of SARS-CoV-2 from coughing patients. And what they did was the patients were instructed to cough 5 times while wearing no mask, surgical mask, or cotton mask. The researchers reported that neither surgical nor cotton masks were effective for filtering SARS-CoV-2 from environment or external mask surface. They also reported there was greater contamination on the outer rather than the inner surface of the mask, which they said could be due to air leakage around the mask edge, because remember, you're not taping this thing to your face, or high velocity coughing, which causes the viral particles to penetrate the mask. They wrote that these results support the importance of hand hygiene after touching outer surfaces rather than wearing the mask. Not only are the masks useless, they can also be dangerous. A woman in New Jersey crashed her car into a power pole because she was wearing an N95 mask for several hours, and insufficient oxygen and excessive carbon dioxide intake caused her to pass out, according to the Lincoln Park Police Department. She was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So, like everything else going on here, the instructions to wear masks and make them out of cloth at home and use scarves and clothing and everything else, absolutely ridiculous, guaranteed to make things worse. And it just makes you wonder, if I can find this stuff, I'm sure that these people are supposed to be so much smarter than me. Some of you remind me of that, by the way, how much smarter you are than I am and how much smarter our health authorities are than I am. And it seems like if they're so darn smart, they would know this stuff and they wouldn't prescribe these ridiculous ideas. So if you live in a state, I want to be clear, that requires a mask, I wouldn't tell you to violate the order. You might want to write to your senator or call your senator or call the U.S. Attorney's Office and file a complaint. Call the Civil Rights Office and file a complaint. File a lawsuit. There are all kinds of things that you can do if you are opposed to this policy for the reasons that I just stated.